Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. This is the first presentation that I will do for you. This is about the climate crisis. That is exactly the reason why WWF is involved in issues like energy and other issues. Not the only reason, because, for instance, the production of energy has implication also for pollution. But the way we produce energy has got a very important impact on the climate crisis. I think is one of the main origin of climate crisis. In this presentation, we will see the science of climate, the causes, as I was saying, the impacts, the risks, and then the international agreement in place, Paris Agreement, and the limit that this international agreement poses for us. Um, what is the greenhouse effect? Sometimes you will hear somebody saying, "Oh, it's all the greenhouse effect fault." Well, if we are alive, this is because of the greenhouse effect. It's not something negative. As many things, or I would say everything, it is good when it's balanced. It's bad when it's unbalanced. And thanks to the fact that we emitted a lot of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, that increased the capacity of the atmosphere to trap the ray of the sun. Now the greenhouse effect is overcoming the capacity of the earth of this the earth as we know it, to have a stable climate system. So you see that the rays of the sun come to the earth. Some of this energy and rays are reflected in the atmosphere thanks to what is called the albedo effect. This effect, because of the feedback of climate change, unfortunately, is less powerful than in the past, especially in the two poles, especially in the Arctic, because there is less snow, there is less surface to reflect the white surface to reflect the rays. So we can begin again. Um, that's why um, we more. This is one of the reasons why the radiations, and so the energy is, there is more energy, more heat trapped in the atmosphere. At the same time, another reason is that the gases that trap the rays, the energy in the atmosphere, are have a much higher concentration than in the past. We will see it. I would like to anticipate that, for instance, just give you the idea of the magnitude of the phenomenon. In the past, we had, before the Industrial Revolution, we had 20, 280 uh, part of CO2 for equivalent for million as a concentration of CO2, so 280, and and today we have overcome. We are going to overcome the 425, 30 parts for million of CO2 equivalent. So it's much, much more. As you see, this is how the Earth was at the end of last year. We are recording at the end of the year 2025. And last year was the record here, so the hottest year ever recorded since we are able to measure the temperatures and record the temperatures on the Earth. This year that is going to finish, 2025 is going to have to be the probably the second or the third hottest year ever recorded. So the last 3 years have been the hottest ever recorded on the Earth. This is a tendency that you can see here. And you see that the increase, the jump of the temperature is very, very significant. And it all happened in the last 3 years. Of course, we don't have the measure for the 2025 because the year is still going on. And also, January 2025 was the warmest January ever recorded. This is very significant because it affects the winters that are important for the northern hemisphere. But the impact of climate change is very visible also in the southern hemisphere. And in fact, we are seeing the signs of climate change also in the Antarctica. What is the difference of the impact of climate change between Arctic and Antarctica? Arctic, in the Arctic, we have ice that is directly in the seawater. So, although it is going to have unfortunately a big impact on, for instance, on the circulation of of water in the sea, in the oceans. It hasn't got an impact on the sea level rise. While the ice we have in the Antarctica is on the land, and that's why if the ice is melting, it means that the sea level will rise. Just to give you an example, you should think to a glass of water. If the ice cube is already in the water, you want to have an increase of the level of the water in the glass. If you add ice cube in the glass, the level of the water in the glass when the ice cube melt it will decrease. That's exactly the phenomenon that we are talking about. Of course, we have ice on the land also in the northern atmosphere. Just let's think to Greenland. So it's not a southern. There is not such a difference between southern and the northern hemisphere. But of course, the southern hemisphere is less exposed to the sunrise and to the sun rays. Sorry, wrong pronunciation, and that's why we are worried when we see that the 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 ice is melting also there. And another thing that we have seen in the current year is a lot of heat waves and anomalies in during the summer, especially in Europe. I'm from Europe, so I will speak about the reality I know best. In Europe, we have seen a very, very warm June, in the warmest ever recorded in Europe. And you see in the map that it's not only a phenomenon in the Mediterranean countries, and it's already very worrying for Spain, France, and Italy. But also, it was a phenomenon involving also the northern countries like the UK, in which we had um, quite unexpected summer. In fact, you see here that this is the drought in Europe. The drought is increasing all over the world, not only in Europe. I think we have a slide afterwards. But what is incredible for a person that knows a little bit about the UK is to have a drought in the UK that is one of the most rainy country in Europe. So that's it used to be. It is not. I don't know now if we would define it as the most rainy country in Europe. The drought is depending of course on the level of rain that you have, the quantity of rain, but also the distribution of rain. If you have a very heavy extreme rain after a drought period, it doesn't mean that it will solve the drought problem. On the contrary, what you have is that the soil will have a lot of difficulties in absorbing water because it is impermeabilized by the drought. And so the damage that the extreme rain will cause will be even more than if the drought was not before the extreme event. So that's you see here that unfortunately Africa is one of the country is of the continents, sorry, of the continents in which we have the more worrying phenomenon of drought, but not only. We have a little bit of it everywhere in the world. And, and of course, I'm not going to read all this data, but we see that the heat waves is a very quite a common phenomenon. Is becoming quite a common phenomenon everywhere, and also there is a newborn, almost newborn, institution called World Weather Attribution that is trying to understand how the influence of climate change, how high the influence of climate change was on the individual weather events. And they said that the human-induced climate change events tripled the number of deaths in 12 major cities in June. So it means that the weather is different from climate. Climate is a tendency. Weather is what you have today, the kind of meteorological conditions that you have today. But if there are extreme events that are fueled by climate change, is because the tendency of climate change is to become to make the extreme events more frequent, much more frequent, and more intense. In the report we are seeing now, the diagram refers to a report, of course, that you will see here. There is an attempt to establish how much is the contribution of single oil and gas company to the increased global average surface temperature. This is important, especially for what is going on uh, in many countries, but also in some of the international courts. The citizens are trying to call for a trial against the oil and gas companies, and in order to call them to their responsibility on climate change and the effects that affect many people all over the world, especially the most vulnerable, the poorest ones. And of course, this is the first attempt. I think that there is a lot of research to be done, but at the same time, we also know that there is some companies, for instance, I remember some paper about Exxon Valdez, Exxon Mobil, no, but that's it was a tanker, about ExxonMobil and about other oil and gas companies that some papers demonstrated that they knew about the effect of the greenhouse gases emissions much before than people got to know it. In fact, the research were done in the 60s. In 1960, around the 90s, 1960, it means that if you think that the the climate convention dates was established in 1992. it means that 30 years before than that, they already knew the effect of the greenhouse emissions. And this is something that is increasingly taking attention, not only the land, but also the water, the oceans, the seas, and the oceans are warming quite dramatically. In fact, the oceans have been, until now, they have been our uh, deposit somehow of CO2. They absorbed a lot of CO2. As we are trying to show, nothing is effectless. And in fact, the increase of CO2 in the waters is causing a phenomenon that we have no time to analyze, but it is called acidification, oceans acidification, and it has got a lot of consequences for some of the creatures that live in the oceans. Here you see that a map by the NOAA, the administration for oceans and atmosphere in the US, in which they show the different the various events that extreme events that you have each month in the world. And here you see that, for instance, the United Kingdom experienced its warmest summer on record, and other of these events. In Asia, also in August, we have a lot of floods and damages caused by extreme events. As somebody can probably already heard about, at the end of the 2025, we are having a lot of extreme events in Asia again, in all Southeast Asia in particular. So, where are we? Guess where are we? This is a sort of a game that I always do when I do a presentation. I mean, always in this year, because it's a picture taken in 2025. This is in the Yorkshire. If you knew a little bit about Great Britain, you would know that Yorkshire is one of the most rainy regions in the UK. But Yorkshire have been experienced a period of large drought with these conditions. It's incredible to see this kind of panorama landscape in the Yorkshire. Some of you could have heard about the glaciers. Not only the ice in the poles, but also the ice on the mountains is melting, and this is two effects. One is that the glaciers that are our reserve of water are shrinking. In European Alps, for instance, there is some prevision that somebody think that in a few years we will get rid of all the glaciers. We hope that the phenomenon could be a little bit less dramatic in the in the short time, but we know that in the medium time, that is what already happens. And this is a phenomenon that is particularly serious in some of the areas of the globe. Think about the Himalaya, where the glaciers are very important as a reserve of water for 1 billion of people. And of course, the shrinking of the glacier poses a big threat to all those people. So you see, this is a report by WWF International, and you see that a lot of creatures experience climate change in their lifetime. Of course, the ones born in 2020 have the possibility of see the a very serious impact of climate change. A very serious increase of the temperature. But also the people born in in 1940, for instance, are seeing some effect, although they can be less inclined to act because of their perspective of life. But it's not only humans, also the animals are experiencing a lot of the climate change. You see the elephants that have a perspective of life very, very huge. Trees, some trees have experienced century, and they are witness of all the historic events in the region, and probably we'll see the worst of the climate change, and even Wales, we will see that. This is what I was already anticipating before. You know that at the moment we have some problems with those measures, because there is a tendency of closing or decreasing the number of scientists working for the different scientific institution that measure this, for instance, the concentration of CO2. This is a slide by Met Office, because while the Mauna Loa laboratories by the American Atmosphere and Oceans Administration, but that's an example of less effort to have to measure the different phenomenon, to have to keep control of the evolution of climate change. So we are at the Paris Agreement. The Paris Agreement was born in 10 years ago, in 2015, sorry, in 2015, and it is the result of a a compromise, but not a compromise on climate change. That's important, and that was good, very good. A compromise among all countries that came to an agreement in the effort to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees. In fact, the Paris Agreement says that we should keep the increase of the temperature well below 2 degrees, aiming for 1.5. And unfortunately, it's not a question of betting, or it's not a question of it's not a goal. It's a limit for the consequences of climate change. With 1.5, we are seeing, and we will see a lot of consequences, but they are somehow manageable. And you will see in some slide the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees, that it's quite significant. In fact, the scientists say that um, every percentage of a degree, it matters. So if you think that it doesn't matter to have half a centigrade more, it's not like that. It doesn't work like that. Just think to yourself, if you have a fever like me at the moment, if you have a fever, half a degree is can change completely your conditions. So if you have 37 degrees centigrade, or if you have 38 degrees centigrade, you are in very different shape. So that's a good example. So the window for limiting global warming to 1.5 is closing. Unfortunately, is increasingly closing, especially because in the last couple of years we are looking at a lot of attempts to slow down the process at international level. But at the same time, there are countries that are going quite at a good speed in putting in place the right technologies and trying to stop the use of fossil fuels that has got the most impact on climate, the most important impact on climate. We have a lot of consequences by climate change. This is the slide I was referring to. This is the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees. You see that we have let's think to coral bleaching. We could lose all the coral reefs by the end of the century if we overcome and we touch 2 degrees, the increase of the temperature of 2 degrees compared to the pre-industrial era. With 1.5, could limit the bleaching, then the loss of coral reef to 70%. So it's damaging, but it's not so damaging as it could be. Means, of course, the difference means less people, people's life impacted, and other other thing that you can see. So climate change have got a lot of implications and impacts. One of the most worrying is on health, and it's not only that extreme events have got an impact on health. Just think to a hurricane. And after a hurricane, you have a lot of difficulties in finding safe water, for instance. But it's also a matter of it's not only the heat, sorry, because during the heat waves, of course, you have a lot of different bacteria and virus that can develop, have better conditions for that. But you have also a different distribution of the vectors. So while a few years ago you didn't have mosquitoes in Nairobi, in Kenya, nowadays you have mosquitoes, although Nairobi is quite high. Um, and this is just an example of the different impact. In fact, in Europe, we see a lot of new kind of mosquitoes coming, and with them a lot of different kind of disease are coming, and infections and so on. Um, in the first thing to think about anyway is that our body is not done for very high temperature. So when you think to some of the temperature that we are reaching in some areas in Asia or in the Arabic Peninsula or in other parts of the world, um, you will see that we reached 50 degrees. 50 degrees is makes a place not suitable for living for humans and for a lot of other creatures and animals and so on, and of course vegetation. So the impact on Earth is very high. Here you see that there are other risks. One of the ways the humans have always reacted to limited disasters have been migration. But of course, migration, well, in a world in which everything is at risk, will be uh, less suitable, less accepted. Although in some countries they are starting to consider climate migration as an issue that can make people ask for asylum. So it's of course there is an impact on agriculture. There is a decline on the food production, and there is a rising of food price. In fact, we are talking about climate inflection at the moment. We are in a period of climate inflection. There is an increasing competition for natural resources, and also there is growing inequalities all around, because the people that have less possibility to react to the impact of climate change. Just think to Miami, in which climate was part of the elections of the new mayor, the recent elections, because in Miami you can already see the effect of climate change and of the sea level rise of the different extreme events. But if there is an area in which you have an impact, there are two kind of reactions. The people who have the economical possibility, they leave and they go to another area. They don't have a migration problems because they are very well accepted, especially because they have money to do that. While the people who have not the economical possibility, they stay where they are, and of course, the quality of life is will be decreasing. So this is in Italian. I don't know why I kept the Italian title because in fact the slide was in English originally, but I'm sorry. But this is the World Economic Forum, in which they made a survey with a lot of CEOs of different companies, and they asked how they perceived the risk in 2 years and in 10 years' time. So the major risk in 2 years' time is misinformation and disinformation. A second main risk is extreme weather events. So climate is already part of the risks. Pollution is the sixth. And then you see the green one are the environmental ones. While in 10 years' time, the environmental risks will be the biggest ones. You see extreme weather events at the first time, in the first position, sorry. Biodiversity loss as the second one. Critical change to health system that we are producing as humans is the third one. Natural resources shortage as the fourth. So you see that even the CEOs are aware of the extreme risk that we are posing throughout the the environmental impact that our activities are having as humans. This is a report that was somehow criticized by somebody. Is a report that said that the global GDP could fall by 50% from climate risk. This report was criticized because there was a data that was not completely homogeneous with others, so they are rewriting this report. But anyway, it gives you the magnitude of the losses that we can have. And that's all for now. I'm giving to you also a short suggestion of things to read. First of all, please read the last IPCC report. The IPCC is the scientific panel of the United Nations on climate change. And it is a very big report made by scientists all around the world for free. There are lots and lots of scientists working for free all around the world. They review all the scientific evidences, all the scientific research made in the last period they are considering. And then there are other suggestions that I would like you to consider. In particular, let me mention the Joanna Rockstrom and his research now with the PIC, the Potsdam Institute for Climate Change Research, and they are trying to make research always putting together the environmental point of view with economic, but especially social point of view. And as I already said many times, of course, the poorest are the first victims of the impact of climate change. This is our slogan as WWF, but it's a slogan that can be shared by many people. What we need to do is to work together, to cooperate for overcome this big threat that is climate change. Unfortunately, at the moment, the world is experiencing a period of very big fighting. But I think that we must cooperate in order to overcome this threat that has not winners or losers. We are all losers if we don't tackle climate change.